Shirley here with Sirius Talis Moon, and I want to talk about the topic of astrology and consultation. Um, the reason being, first of all, the Pluto Scorpios are Pluto squaring, which is a big onset for anything occultistic, psychological, and they're Pluto squaring from Pluto Aquarius, which is astrology. Pluto can be psychology and occult, so the power of astrology in psychology and the power of psychology in astrology. However, without talking about ritual abuse, wealth consolidation on natural resources by torturing, trafficking children, basically it is literally castrating the entire field of consultation, also the medical field and other fields, politics and whatnot. Um, but this is the big because the people that arrive to get the consultation are arriving basically because they were ritually abused, one way or another. So look at this. Oh my God, look at this Deneb Algedi with the moon that was just crossing Deneb Algedi. It's moon hour. The moon is squaring Venus and Lilith and applying to square Uranus. So for those that work with the outer planets, it's more sensitive to make like a Deneb Algedi talisman with that. With those that don't, it might be a good election. Uh, I think we pretty much passed the election because we want the moon applying, but it's not impossible. And here is the issue. When people are arriving to receive basically recovery from ritual abuse, they need an entire system of support, from the housing independent of ability to work to stopping the targeting towards them, both in occult practice, MK often, and MK Ultra, or similar projects. While absolutely psychological principles and astrological talismans even can very much assist in the process, any form of organized consultation, licensed consultation, requires participation. And I think those that watched me since Spirit of Matter saw in evidence what happens when a person does not comply. So at this time, we get a situation that is absolutely not unique to astrology or psychology, but it is an onset where absolutely there is a lot of potential, there's a shit ton of potential in the combination of astrology and psychology, psychological insight, occultism, and so on and so forth. That cannot happen without abolishing ritual abuse on the level of wealth consolidation and child trafficking, both for those who think to be practitioners, that would be expected to comply with and effectively kidnap and do crimes against humanity, which are, we all know what the punishment for crime against humanity, okay? Because this is the nature of the crimes. So what we're getting here is a very unique Pluto square that has an onset that is abundant with opportunities, scientific revolution, and at the same time, big challenges that really are to do with the core of humanity. I think only the late Pluto Sag that are on the galactic center will face such a Pluto square. one cannot pretend that they can just add astrology or add psychology and they can be of, you know, assistance without actually. And here's the thing with Pluto Aquarius. Pluto Aquarius is the power of, if we take out astrology, it's the power of what is happening in society to shape particularly suicide. Because Aquarius is the community, and Uranus that is associated with Aquarius. I know Saturn rules this, and we can do that with Saturn, but I think that looking at the perspective of Uranus, then this is where we would have the studies of how society affects one's will to unalive themselves, so to speak. And if you think about Gen Zers, we think about an entire generation that invented a word for that. My generation, millennials, a lot of them would be buried outside a fence, and it would be very, there was literally no any way to talk about that. Um, and let alone access to choice and so on and so forth. But then we have the Pluto Capricorns that are unaliving themselves by the masses because of the ritual abuse that's happening in schools, elementary schools, and junior highs, that is organized by the staff in the school. So the young psychologist that wants to be adding astrology because maybe they listened, to me or my colleagues and they saw, oh my God, Sheila is actually right. Before I diagnose a patient in being codependent, maybe 7th house. And it's going to be a journey that has actually a time frame, and that's an excellent idea. Or astrologers that say, "Hey, I want to improve upon my consultation abilities. I want if people come to me for questions that are requiring tremendous emotional sensitivity, and I want to acquire the skills or the therapeutic skills, which is fantastic. It's just becoming more professional and assisting to people, whether it's with grief or, with other related topics. And at the same time, the opportunities are there. However, what would be if the staff at the preschool are expected to encourage ritual abuse, horrendous abuse, and gaslight and perpetuate the abuse? Imagine what would the consultation professions be required at this time where the power of community is also being abused globally. So, and mind you, all of the people that participate, even though probably they were tortured to participate, are basically performing crimes against humanity, which indeed, we think of as the Eichmanns of the world. So it is um, it is something that is definitely needed. Like people definitely need to tend to that, and one cannot halt that as a psychological one-to-one consultation, or an astrological, you know, reading without addressing these very topics And those that have followed my channel know I was one of the pioneering astrologers that talked about MK often. There is no healing and recovery without addressing and changing what caused the trauma, which in this case is the wealth consolidation that's done by ritual abuse and the ripple effect it has on entire global society. Because the people would be extorted to and tortured to provide with more violence and trauma rather than recovery and actual growth.